So I'm going to log this journal entry, but this one is going to be a little bit different than what I've been talking about before. This is going to be about sexual immorality. I think people really don't understand what sexual immorality is in God's sight. Now, the word immoral basically just means what is right or wrong. And it could be taken two ways. What is right or wrong according to what God sees is right or wrong, or what is right or wrong as far as a person or a people, the community of people, how they might see it as right or wrong. And so that's what is considered moral or immoral. Now, I've kind of been just ruminating over a thought about what's going on here in the U.S. with COVID-19. This pandemic has really wreaked havoc on our country as well as other countries, but in particular the U.S. because we have 50 states, and all 50 states are sovereign nations. They can govern their own state how they want to, apart from the nation to a certain extent. Not to say that, I'm here in California, so, we Californians can be ruled under a certain jurisdiction according to certain laws that don't apply to other states like Nevada and Colorado and Texas. So, I mean, every state is a sovereign nation within itself in that regard. Not that, Californians can just pretty much govern themselves without the federal law. I'm not saying that. But as far as having our own laws, having our own jurisdictions, we basically are shutting down our economy for a second time because of COVID-19. And I just been watching the news lately, and a lot of people have been blaming the continual spread of this disease on the president. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm not a Donald Trump fan. I'm not pro Donald Trump at all. And I believe he has definitely had his part in why the disease has spread, because we've been misinformed about a number of things in regards to what he has told the American people. He's told the American people that it would just go away with, in a couple of months, we forget all about it. And lo and behold, 5 months later, we're still here. So, has Trump and his administration done a good job handling this pandemic? I would say, in my own opinion, nah, not really. But is it his fault? No, I don't blame him. I look at it spiritually and say, well, yeah, it's a pandemic, but I believe America is ripe for judgment. And America is ripe for judgment because America, to me, set itself up for this. Because we are immoral sexually. I spent 12 years in grade school, and not one time did I ever learn about what it means to be sexually chaste. And I learned sexual education at school, where they taught you about, where babies come from and contraceptives. But we don't teach in our schools anything about sexual morality. It's like we leave that topic kind of off the table, but we talk about academics. And I've learned so many things throughout my years of study in grade school and both at a higher learning institution. I went to a university and got a undergraduate degree in criminal justice. But even there, I learned so many things that I don't even use in the real world. For example, in grade school, I had to pass Algebra 2. I had to learn all these different equations. Y minus X squared over Z squared. And I had to plug in all these different numbers. And I'm 42 years old now. And I look back and I say, man, I was so stressed out studying for my math exam and, trying to do my daily homework. And the truth is, I never even used that stuff in the real world. I mean, I use equations to break down formulas, like in real estate. There are certain formulas you need to try to understand in order to really know how to invest wisely, cash over cash. We got stuff like that. But a lot of that stuff you can calculate in a spreadsheet, and it does it for you. Now, some people do know how to do it manually without a calculator. And I think it's good to maybe learn both ways. But that was the only time I actually used equations. And I'm thinking our educational system is so backwards. We spend so much time teaching our kids academics rather than, and what is that? How to be civilized citizens in society. I mean, as a young child, I remember being in preschool and the kids I was playing with would say, David is going with Susie. And when I heard that for the first time, I didn't know what that meant. I was like, what? Oh, well, Davy and Susie broke up. And now Susie's with Justin. And so, it was this talk at an early age. I mean, I'm talking preschool, kindergarten, 5, 6 years old. And eventually I learned that when David and Susie are quote unquote going together, that they are considered boyfriend and girlfriend. And then when they break up, they no longer boyfriend and girlfriend. So I was like, oh, that's what they talking about. But I still didn't understand what it means to be a boyfriend, what it means a girlfriend. What does that really mean? Does he have rights? Does she have rights? What is this really all about? And so really, for a long period of time in my life, I was learning things about relationships that were never really explained. All this talk was going on out in the playground. But when you finish playing during recess and you come back inside the classroom, the teacher wasn't going to talk about the rumor that was going around that David is now going with Susie, or that David and Susie broke up and now Susie is now going with Justin. The teacher didn't talk about that. And not to say that teachers should, teachers don't care about what these kids be getting involved in. But the point is that the kids have a whole nother world that they associate with. And this world kind of just follows them all throughout their life. Where they learn one thing in the classroom, then they go out there free time on recess and they participate in all kind of things that sets them up for failure later in life. Because now Susie is used to being in and out of relationships, and she ended up about 5 years old. But she's learned, hey, if I'm with this boy, that'll make him jealous. And then if I break up with him and get with him, that's going to make him jealous. And so kids kind of do this stuff at an early age, and the adults allow it, and we think it's cute. And it's sad because that same behavior pattern follows usually those boys and girls until adulthood. And so what you see is the same pattern when they become teenagers. They in and out of relationships. But by that time, now the relationship and the person has grown. And now it's no longer just going together. Now they're actually sexually active. So little Susie is now taking it a step further. Now she having sex with her boyfriend. And now he having sex with his girlfriend. And when things don't work out, they break up and they seek another partner. And by the time they turn adults, by the time they turn 18, they probably done had a few, maybe 3 to 7 sex partners. And they still teenagers. They adults, but it's just late teens. And I'm thinking, this is what's going on in our schools and our institutions, is that we are teaching our children that this kind of behavior pattern is okay. Because our schools are co-education. So you got a mixture of boys and girls. And so when you have this kind of mixture, then you have this kind of behavior, which leads to promiscuity. And then promiscuity eventually leads to prostitution. And that's how God sees it. Is that when a boy or a girl have sex with somebody they're not married to or somebody they're just going with, what they're doing, they are renting their body to this person to use it for their own pleasure. And then they're going to repackage themselves when that person is finished using it and put themselves back on the shelf for the next customer. That's what they're doing. And that's what we are doing as a nation. We don't see it that way, but we are products. And why do I say that? Because each and every one of us has a shelf life. We're going to expire one day. None of us is going to live forever in this flesh, not on this earth. So if we got an expiration date, then we have a shelf life and we are a product. And the sad thing that's going on in this country, and I'm actually a victim of this, is that the young girls and boys that don't participate in this kind of promiscuous behavior at first, they are taught that something is wrong with them. You still a virgin? What? By the time they become a certain age, 17, 18, 19, if you're a male, you don't really want to tell your friends that you're still a virgin. And if you're a woman, by the time you turn 21, 22, you're trying to figure out when is a good age for me to, give my virginity. And that is corruption of the mind. We shouldn't even be thinking like that. But I had loathed my virginity for a long time, and I didn't like telling people that I was a virgin. When I was fresh out of high school. I kept that to myself. It was my own little personal secret. Nobody really knew. And then I began to really loathe it so much. It was like, what am I doing? Everybody else is participating and having fun and got boyfriends and girlfriends, but I'm still by myself. I still ain't never been intimate with a woman at all. And that kind of made me not really want to be a virgin anymore. And that was terrible, but I began to give in to the way of society and how they thought. And I look back now, I say, man, if I would have had a loving father that raised me, to teach me, to show me that, being sexually chaste, there's nothing wrong with that. Because your sexual chastity is more value than anything that you have next to your soul. You only have one body, so you want to take care of it. And you don't want to be renting your body to the next customer, sleeping with this girl, and then things don't work out, and then you back on the market again. You don't want to rent. You want to buy. You want to buy a brand new product that's never been used. You want a virgin. And the same thing with the virgin. She want a man that ain't never been with nobody. So I didn't learn this till later in life. I'm now 42, and now I understand how relationships are seen in God's mind. But the reality is that here in the U.S., where this kind of behavior goes on at the preschool level and kindergarten level, and then it carries on into adulthood, that leads to a lot of sexual immorality later in life for a lot of people. And our workplaces are co-ed as well as our schools. And what you have is that when you have the workplace being co-education and the schools co-education, then it's going to be a very difficult thing for both boys and girls to be in the same place and not have the desire to want to, have any kind of romantic relations, basically. If the children are doing it, if we're doing it as children, what do you think we're going to do when we get older? I remember my first relationship. It was a girl named Sarah. And I don't know, maybe I was in the first grade, second grade. And I can't even remember how it all happened. I think we was just playing on the playground, and she said, want to be my boyfriend. And I think I just agreed to it, not really knowing what I was agreeing to. And next thing you know, everybody was saying, well, Paul and Sarah together. And then like the next recess break, she said, well, I don't want to be your girlfriend no more. I'll break up with you. So she broke my heart. I really felt heartbroken, like, damn. We was together, and now you just gonna break my heart. Like, what'd I do? But that was the game that she had learned how to play in order to make another little boy jealous. Oh, I'll just get with him. I don't really like him, but just to make so-and-so jealous over here because he's going with somebody else, I just going to spread the rumor. Stuff like that goes on, in the private lives of our children, and we don't even pay attention to it. And many adults that do pay attention to it, they just think it's so cute, but it's terrible. We're setting ourselves up for failure. And I want to make it clear that the way God sees all of this is totally different. When we say, oh, that's my girlfriend or that's my boyfriend, in God's mind, what you're saying is we are engaged. Now, in our society, what we do is we have like several different phases before you get to the marriage. We date, then we have what's called going steady, become girlfriend, boyfriend. And then if we really like each other, then the man will propose and offer, marriage and give her a ring, and then we'll become engaged, and then we'll get married. And for many people, that's the steps here in the Western civilization. And then for some, they kind of halfway go through the steps. They kind of have sex. Then they, not boyfriend and girlfriend, but they just, friends with benefits. Then they keep having sex, and then they, they might turn it into a girlfriend, boyfriend thing. And then after that, if he still want to be with her, she still want to be with him, then they might, make the relationship that's girlfriend and boyfriend into an engagement. And then they might be engaged for like the next 5-10 years. And they still may or may not, exchange vows. All of that in God's mind is nothing more than prostitution. And here's why. When a man or a woman or even a boy or girl have sex, in God's mind, that consummates the marriage. But since you didn't exchange vows, all you're doing is renting your body. So that means someone else can actually have you. You're not married, So, when we say, oh, Susie and Brian are going together, you're really saying that you are engaged for marriage. We don't see it that way, but God sees it that way. And when you have sex before marriage, God sees it as that's your husband now. Even though y'all didn't, exchange vows, sex consummates the marriage. In ancient times, when a man betrothed himself to a woman, like in the story of Jacob marrying both Leah and Rachel, he was betrothed to Rachel for 7 years. That was the contract he had with her father, Laban. And then at the banquet, he went into her and then found out it was her older sister. He thought, he was going to be with Rachel. But once he had sex with her, he couldn't return her. He couldn't give it back. He took her virginity. That was it. And so he had to basically take Leah to be his wife, even though his father-in-law had deceived him in thinking that he was going to be marrying Rachel. But the point is that once he had actually had sex with Leah, even though he thought it was Rachel, once he took her virginity, that was it. He became her husband then. Now, had he went into that tent and had he realized it was Leah and he had not had sex with her, then he didn't have to go through with the marriage. But I don't know how he didn't know it was Leah. Maybe she had her face partly covered. Maybe her and Rachel kind of looked alike a little bit. And, she realized that if she had her face fully uncovered, that he would know it was her. And, he probably would not want to have sex with her. So somehow she probably, like I said, had maybe a head covering and had her head covered so that he couldn't see her face until after the fact, and then realized, oh, this is Leah, But he realized as a man, once you have sex with that woman, that consummates the marriage. And so, Jacob couldn't take her back. He couldn't get a refund for the purchase he had made, because once he took the virginity, that was it. It was final. You can't give it back. And so that is how God sees it, is that when a man takes a woman's virginity, he can't give it back. That's how come it's so precious. That's why it's so vital and it's so valuable, is that you only have it once. And once you give it, you can't get it back.